They say history turns on quiet hinges. And tonight, the greatest door in Christendom is about to swing open once more. St. Peter's Square is hushed. The seat of the world's most ancient office now stands empty. Pope Francis has breathed his last, and 1.3 billion hearts pause, not in fear, but in sacred anticipation. How does the Church choose a new leader? What secret rituals unfold behind locked doors, beyond marble columns and centuries-old frescoes? This is not politics. This is not ceremony. This is something older, something deeper. It is a spiritual drama that has shaped the world for nearly 2 millennia. And tonight, we begin our journey through it. Step inside the walls of the Vatican, as we reveal the mysteries, the traditions, and the humanity behind the election of the next Pope. Because the question is no longer if. The question is, who? The bells have tolled. The prayers have been whispered. Pope Francis has returned to God. But as one chapter closes, the world watches a new one begin. How does the Catholic Church choose a new pope? What ancient rituals govern the most mysterious election on earth? And who might wear the white cassock next? Tonight, we step behind the walls of the Vatican, into a world of prayer, politics, and divine discernment. This is the story of how the world's 1.3 billion Catholics prepare to welcome a new spiritual leader, and how history will be made again. The moment a pope dies, a new chapter begins. But it doesn't begin with fanfare. It begins in quiet. In reverence. In silence. This is seat vacant, the seat is vacant. And when the chair of St. Peter is empty, the world holds its breath. The bells of St. Peter's toll, marking not just the death of a pope, but the suspension of an era. The papal ring, the fisherman's ring, is destroyed. Its purpose, to seal the authority of the pope, now ends in the hands of the Camerlengo. A hammer strikes the ring, breaking the symbol of papal power. It is a moment that echoes across the world, signaling that the Church is in transition. The Vatican goes dark. The papal apartments are sealed. The coat of arms of the Pope, which hung in the highest places of the Vatican, is replaced by a simple black cloth, signaling the end of an era. For the next few days, the Church enters a time of reflection, and the Novendiali's 9 days of mourning begin. Cardinals, bishops, priests, and the faithful gather in prayer to honor the life of the Pope who has passed. The Novendiales are a time for remembrance, for reflection, for deep sorrow. But it is also a time to prepare. The papacy is not just a seat of power. It is a seat of responsibility. And as the world mourns, the Church prepares. During this time, the Camerlengo plays an essential role. Cardinal Kevin Farrell, in 2025, becomes the caretaker of the Vatican during this period. His role is to manage the affairs of the Church while the College of Cardinals makes their final preparations for the conclave. While the world outside speculates on who will lead, the Church waits. The rituals continue. And the question of who will fill the seat of Peter remains suspended in the silence of the Vatican. This is a time of sacred pause. There are no decisions made. No policies signed. No global movements begin. This is the moment when the heart of the Church, quiet, steadfast, waiting, prepares itself for the next chapter. Pilgrims arrive. Thousands gather in St. Peter's Square, their faces full of grief. The square is filled with light from candles, from prayers, from the hearts of the faithful. And the question emerges, softly at first, then louder with each passing day: who will lead the Church next? The answer, for now, is not yet revealed. But the process, one filled with centuries of tradition and solemnity, has already begun. The moment a pope dies, a new chapter begins. And it begins with silence. This is seat vacant, Latin for, the seat is vacant. It is not just a legal term. It is a spiritual moment, suspended in time. The shepherd is gone. The chair of Peter stands empty. Immediately, sacred rituals unfold. The papal ring, the ring of the fisherman, is destroyed with a ceremonial hammer, signifying the end of papal authority. The apostolic palace is sealed. And the papal coat of arms is draped in black. All decisions from this moment forward must wait. The Vatican enters a sacred pause. But while the world outside speculates, the Church within begins to pray. The funeral preparations commence. Over the next 9 days a period called the Novendiales, cardinals, priests, and the faithful gather to celebrate masses in memory of the departed pontiff. Each day brings its own reflection, its own intention, its own tear. During this period, no major church doctrines can be declared. No appointments made. No international policies shifted. The Church continues, but it breathes slowly, reverently. At the center of this stillness is the Camerlengo, the papal chamberlain. He verifies the Pope's death. He secures the papal apartment. He oversees the funeral rites and coordinates the logistics for what comes next. In 2025, that role belongs to Cardinal Kevin Farrell, a man known for discretion and trust. Outside the Vatican, thousands gather. Pilgrims travel from around the world to say goodbye. St. Peter's Square fills with candlelight. The basilica's bells ring in sorrow. And slowly, a question rises in the silence. The papacy has been vacant for only a few days, but the work of the Church moves quickly. The eyes of the world are fixed on Vatican City, but behind the high walls of the Vatican, a quieter drama unfolds, a drama where tradition, politics, and faith converge in a sacred and sometimes subtle way. The general congregations have begun. The cardinals have gathered from every corner of the globe. Over 130 men, each with their own experiences, their own dreams for the Church, and their own visions of its future. But for now, their differences are put aside as they meet in the heart of the Vatican. This period of reflection is not an election. Not yet. It is a time of soul-searching and deep discussion, where the future of the Church is debated not just in theology, but in the realities of the modern world. The cardinals, each deeply loyal to the faith, yet coming from vastly different cultural and theological backgrounds, share their insights, their hopes, and their concerns for the direction of the Church. And though no formal campaigning is allowed, the whispers of alliances form quietly in these days of discussion. Some Habsburgs will favor a reformer, a man who will continue Pope Francis's legacy of change. Others lean towards a more traditional leader who can restore stability to the Church after a papacy marked by both praise and controversy. The cardinals sit together, deep in conversation, weighing the qualities of the next pope. Who will carry the mantle of St. Peter into the future? Who will be the shepherd for millions, guiding them through turbulent times? Will the next pope come from the global south, continuing the trend that began with Pope Francis? Or will the Church return to its roots in Europe? There are no easy answers. Each cardinal must balance personal beliefs with the collective will of the Church. The general congregations are not just about sharing information, they are about discerning the heart of the Church. They are about making decisions that will affect the future of Christianity for decades to come. And yet, the spirit of humility is present. There are no loud arguments, no power struggles, just men who have devoted their lives to the Church, quietly working together for one purpose, to find the right man to lead. As the days pass, a sense of anticipation fills the air. The meetings continue. The talks are intense. The prayers are fervent. But one thing is certain, the process has already begun. The next pope has not yet been chosen, but the foundations are being laid. In these quiet moments, as the cardinals gather around the table, one of them, often alone in a corner, pauses and remembers, this is not just a political decision. This is a spiritual moment. A divine call. And though the debates rage, each man knows the weight of his vote. It is a vote not only for a man but for the future of billions. As the final preparations are made, as the cardinals gather their thoughts and prayers, the Church continues to hold its breath. The sacred silence of sede vacant remains, and the faithful around the world continue to pray, awaiting the day when the conclave begins. The moment the general congregations come to an end, the cardinals, filled with a sense of duty and purpose, gather in solemn silence. The conclave begins. It is a time when history is not merely watched, it is made. In the shadow of Michelangelo's masterpieces, in the sacred silence of the Sistine Chapel, the most significant decision in Christendom is about to unfold. The word conclave comes from the Latin cum clave, which means, with a key. And so it is once the cardinals enter, the door is locked behind them. The outside world fades into nothingness. No distractions, no interruptions. The only sound now is the quiet murmur of prayers, the rustling of ballots, and the beating of hearts that carry the weight of the Catholic world. Before the voting begins, the cardinals take an oath, a vow that binds them to secrecy, to faith, and to the will of God. Each one promises that they will vote for the man they believe is called by the Holy Spirit to lead the Church into the future. They swear to set aside their personal interests, their desires, their ambitions, and to seek only God's will. This is not just a political process. It is a spiritual one, fraught with prayer, discernment, and divine inspiration. As the oath is taken, the chapel doors close, and the process begins. The cardinals are isolated from the world, cut off from all communication. No phones. No televisions. No access to the outside world. They are alone with their thoughts, their prayers, and the gravity of the task at hand. In these moments, the weight of history settles on their shoulders, and the eyes of the world are fixed on them, though they remain unseen. The vote is simple in form, each cardinal writes down the name of the candidate they believe should be the next pope. The ballots are then placed in an urn and counted. The names are announced aloud, but the outcome is unknown. The ballots are burned, and with each round of voting, the cardinals hope, and they pray, that they are closer to finding the right man to lead them. If no candidate has gained the required two-thirds majority, the smoke that rises from the Sistine Chapel is black. It is a signal to the world that the decision has not yet been made. The faithful waiting in St. Peter's Square watch in silence, their hopes fading, but not yet extinguished. And so, the process continues. The tension grows. The eyes of the world remain fixed on that small chimney, awaiting the first sign of change. But when the cardinals have made their choice, when the will of God has been discerned, the smoke that rises is white. It is the signal that a new pope has been chosen. The world, for a moment, holds its breath. Inside the Sistine Chapel, the cardinals know that their decision is not just about politics or preferences, it is about leadership. It is about faith. It is about choosing a man who will guide 1.3 billion people through the challenges of the modern world while remaining rooted in tradition. It is not a choice they make lightly. Each vote is a prayer, a plea for wisdom and guidance. Over the course of several days, the cardinals will cast their ballots and burn their choices. As the hours stretch into days, the intensity inside the chapel grows. The air thickens with the weight of the decision. The cardinals' voices grow softer as the reality sets in, they are choosing not just a leader, but the very future of the Church. And as the ballots are counted, the cardinals continue to pray. For discernment. For humility. For clarity. For a leader who will walk with the poor, lead with mercy, and guide the Church into a future filled with both challenges and hope. Outside the chapel, St. Peter's Square fills with faithful Catholics, their faces lit with the glow of thousands of candles, waiting. They stand together, united in hope, in prayer. They too are waiting for the moment when the smoke rises and the world will know, the next pope has been chosen. And when that moment comes, history will move once again. The moment the general congregations end, the cardinals are ready. The conclave begins. And in the dim light of the Sistine Chapel, history prepares to unfold. The word conclave comes from the Latin cum clave, meaning, with a key. And this is what happens: the cardinals, locked inside the chapel, are secluded from the outside world, surrounded only by prayer, tradition, and the weight of their decisions. Before they enter, each cardinal takes a solemn oath, a vow of secrecy and fidelity. They swear to vote only according to the will of God, guided by the Holy Spirit. And with that oath, they close the door behind them. For the next several days, the cardinals will have no contact with the outside world. No phones, no emails, no news. It is as if time itself has stopped. The only world that exists now is within the walls of the Sistine Chapel. And with the final seal, the process of voting begins. In a sacred, time-honored tradition, the cardinals cast their ballots, each one writing the name of the candidate they believe should lead the church. The ballots are folded and placed in a urn, and the votes are counted aloud. Then, they are burned. If no pope is elected, the smoke that rises from the chimney is black, signaling that the voting has not yet reached a decision. But when a new pope is chosen, white smoke rises. The world will know that a new shepherd has been found. But the process itself is anything but simple. The voting is slow, deliberate. And over time, the tension inside the chapel grows. Each day, the cardinals cast their ballots. Each day, their choices are counted. But it is the third day, the critical moment, when a new name may begin to emerge. In the quiet, hidden recesses of the Sistine Chapel, the cardinals are faced with a question that reaches into the depths of their souls: who is the man that will guide 1.3 billion Catholics into a new era? And as the votes are tallied and the ballots burned, they pray. Not just for wisdom, but for divine guidance. For a leader. For a shepherd. As the hours pass, the world waits. The chapel remains sealed. And outside, in St. Peter's Square, the faithful begin to gather. Their faces lit with the light of 1,000 candles, waiting for the moment when the smoke rises and the world will know, a new pope has been chosen. So, who becomes pope? Technically, any male Catholic could be elected, but it's not so simple. In practice, only cardinals, men already in the highest echelons of the church, are considered for the papacy. And not all cardinals are created equal. What makes a cardinal a papabile, a legitimate candidate? First, a papabile must embody certain qualities that transcend personal preference. He must be a man of deep faith and prayer, someone who not only has knowledge of theology but has lived it. The next pope is not just a leader in name, he is a spiritual guide, and the cardinals know that the future of the entire church depends on the man they choose. The most obvious quality is the ability to unite. The Catholic Church, while a global entity, is deeply diverse. A papabile must be someone who can hold together this vast network of cultures, traditions, and beliefs, while keeping a keen eye on the struggles of the modern world. He must not only address theological questions but the social, political, and ethical crises that challenge the faithful today. The cardinals look for men who have proven their leadership in the church. Those with years of experience running dioceses or religious orders. Those who have demonstrated pastoral sensitivity and a willingness to tackle difficult problems head-on. A papabile is someone who has not shied away from controversy or criticism, but has handled it with grace, humility, and a profound commitment to the gospel. Then there's the question of vision. A pope must have a clear vision for the future of the church. He must see beyond the present and have the courage to make bold decisions, to steer the church toward the future, while remaining deeply grounded in tradition. This is one of the central struggles facing the cardinals. Do they choose a pope who will continue the reforms of Pope Francis, or do they choose someone who will return to a more traditional view of the papacy? Some cardinals may favor a reformer, someone who will continue the trajectory of Pope Francis, calling for greater inclusivity, care for the marginalized, and a re-examination of church teachings on issues like marriage, family, and sexuality. These cardinals will be looking for someone who will prioritize compassion and action in the face of global challenges like poverty, climate change, and social justice. Others may lean toward a more conservative, doctrinally focused pope, someone who will defend traditional Catholic teachings without compromise. They may look for someone who can reassure those who feel the church is moving too quickly, too radically. Some cardinals look to the global south, Africa, Latin America, and Asia, as they seek a new pope. They want someone who represents the growing strength of the church in these regions, someone who understands the unique challenges facing Catholic communities there, and who will push the church to engage more fully with the realities of the developing world. And then there's the question of personality. A papabile must be a man of charisma, someone who can speak to the world with authority, but also with kindness. He must be a pastor, not a politician. He must inspire not only the faithful but also the world's leaders. His words must carry weight in the halls of power, and his actions must reflect the values he preaches. The cardinals are tasked with choosing someone who embodies all of these qualities. They are choosing not just a manager of the church, but a man who will shape its soul. As they gather to pray and deliberate, they know that the choice they make will impact not only the lives of the 1.3 billion Catholics around the world, but the future of Christianity itself. And as the discussions unfold behind the walls of the Vatican, the question looms larger than ever: who will be the one to step forward into the light and lead the Church into its future? The time has come. The cardinals, after days of prayer, reflection, and careful discussion, now enter the most solemn and intense phase of the conclave, the election itself. The world's eyes are on them, but inside the Sistine Chapel, everything else fades away. What matters now is discernment, prayer, and the task at hand. Who will be chosen to lead 1.3 billion Catholics into the future? The voting process is simple, but sacred. Each cardinal writes the name of the man he believes is called by God to be the next pope. The ballots are then folded and placed in a large urn, one by one. There is no campaigning, no speeches, no persuasion. Each vote is private, and each decision is made with great reverence and responsibility. Once the votes are counted, they are burned. If no one has received a 2/3 majority, necessary for the papal election, black smoke rises from the chimney of the Sistine Chapel. This is the signal that a decision has not yet been made. The cardinals return to their prayers and discussions, awaiting the next round of voting. But when a candidate has received the requisite votes, something changes. The air becomes thick with anticipation. The cardinals know this will be the moment when the direction of the Church changes forever. White smoke rises from the chimney, signaling to the world that a new pope has been chosen. The bells of St. Peter's Basilica ring out. And then, from the balcony of the Vatican, the world hears the famous words: Habemus Papam. We have a pope. The announcement echoes across the globe, and in that instant, history is made. The new pope is introduced to the world, and the Church enters a new era. But the election process itself is not just about choosing a new leader. It is an act of faith, an act of divine discernment. The cardinals know they are not merely selecting a political figure. They are choosing a spiritual father for millions of people, someone who will guide the Church through crises, challenges, and moments of hope. And while the world celebrates or debates the choice, the new pope steps forward. The conclave, for all its mystery and reverence, has done its work. The journey of the Church continues. But for now, in the heart of St. Peter's Square, the question has been answered. The Pope is here. The faithful rejoice. And the world holds its breath, waiting to see what comes next. The bells of St. Peter's Basilica ring out. The crowd, gathered in the vast square below, holds its breath. For the first time, the announcement echoes through the air. Habemus Papam. We have a pope. And with those words, the world holds its collective breath, as a new pope steps forward. The moment is both timeless and modern. The smoke rising from the Sistine Chapel has signaled to the world, the Catholic Church has a new leader. But now, we wait to see the man who will wear the white cassock. From the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica, the new pope appears, his face calm, but filled with the weight of responsibility. He bows. He waves. The crowd below erupts into applause, into tears. For millions, it is a moment of joy and hope. For others, it is the beginning of a new chapter in an ongoing story. In that single moment, everything changes. The future of the Church, the path of Christianity, the direction of billions of lives, all hinge on this one individual. And yet, the new pope, standing there before the eyes of the world, knows that the power is not his own. It is God's. He will lead, but he will also serve. He will guide, but he will also be guided. The Habemus Papam moment is a turning point. It is not just the end of the conclave, but the start of a new papacy. The world now looks to him for leadership, not just as a head of state, but as a spiritual father. And as he steps forward, his words are simple. Brothers and sisters, I thank you. It is a statement of humility. It is a recognition that the journey is shared, that the church is a family, and that leadership, above all, is about service. The new pope is presented to the world, but this is not the end. It is the beginning of a new era. And in the hearts of the faithful, there is a glimmer of hope, a glimmer that the church will continue, that its message will endure, and that the light of Christ will shine through the leadership of a new pope. The journey ahead is uncertain, but as the world celebrates, as the applause fades and the crowds begin to disperse, one thing is certain, the church has a new leader. And with that, the next chapter of Catholic history begins. As the final applause fades and the new pope begins his first steps into the future of the church, we remember the long journey that has brought us here. The passing of one pope and the rise of another marks a constant in the life of the church, a reminder that the path of faith is never still, always evolving, and always moving forward. The church, with its billion-strong flock, continues to walk through the world's challenges and triumphs, carrying the message of peace, love, and truth that has endured for centuries. Each new pope is a guide for that journey, a light that leads us not to personal glory, but to service, humility, and God's will. We say goodbye, not just to a man who has passed, but to an era that will forever shape the history of the Church. And as we reflect on Pope Francis's papacy, his humility, his love for the marginalized, his call for justice, we can only hope that the new pope will carry forward these values with strength, compassion, and unwavering faith. The world waits with bated breath for the next chapter in this extraordinary journey. And as the journey continues, the legacy of every pope, past and present, remains alive in the hearts of the faithful, inspiring generations to come. With every step the new pope takes, we are reminded that the light of Christ shines on, leading us through the darkness and into the light of a better future. May the Church continue its sacred mission, and may each of us, in our own way, take part in the path that is before us. Amen.